Hey guys, it's Leilani with the Magical Solution. I'm just coming on to put my 2 cents in regarding the conversation that we're having right now in the Espiritismo / spiritualist part of TikTok regarding our ancestors and ancestor veneration. So the conversation is battling with this discussion or with the confusion around whether we should or should not venerate all of our ancestors. And the question as to why we should or should not is coming from a couple of different places. It's coming from, for example, I am adopted. Should or should I not venerate my adopted ancestors? I am, multiracial, and some of my ancestors definitely did not get along with other ancestors, or I am a result of some really horrific ancestral breeding and whatnot, and so should I venerate those types of ancestors? Or I have really, really crappy ancestors, people who have committed murder, people who are, not good people in life, and I don't want to venerate them. Or I have ancestors who I myself personally have been abused by, and I really do not want to acknowledge them or work with them, right? So all of these questions as to whether we should or should not venerate ancestors are 1000% valid, real questions that I get bombarded with constantly, from my classes, in my inboxes, and things like that. And the answer to that question of whether or not you should or should not venerate your ancestors cannot be a sweeping answer. And I know that from an Espiritismo, from a spiritist perspective, it should be pretty black and white, right? It should be. You would think, right? You venerate all of them. Of course you do. You have to. You're giving light to them. It's part of your journey, blah, 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 blah. Pause. And this is where I'm going to interject and talk about a couple other elements around Espiritismo and around Spiritism. Okay? So one of the things that we need to consider with regards to Spiritism and the Espiritismo in the way that it's traditionally practiced through the codices, right? Number one, yes, it is our responsibility to give light to spirits. Let me make that clear. Spirits. It is our responsibility to give light to spirits. And what are spirits? Everything. Not just our ancestors. Everything that has spirit, we are responsible for giving light to that, okay? Now, when we bring this back to the ancestor conversation, we now need to break down this idea of veneration, this idea of honoring our ancestors, this idea of working with our ancestors or healing with our ancestors. See, now these are all very, very different categories. And this is why language matters. And I get very uptight when people are like, oh, Leilani, you're too in your head. You like to categorize things. You like to yeah, bitch, I do. Yes. Because I like to be clear on what is being said, right? And veneration, honoring your ancestors and venerating your ancestors are way different from working with your ancestors and way different from healing with your ancestors, right? These are all different behaviors that we engage in when we are engaging in ancestor work, right? And so the first thing you need to ask yourself is, how far into this process do I want to go with my ancestors? Okay? Because that will determine what you're going to do, and how you're going to work with them, right? Second, the other piece that I need to bring into awareness within this conversation is that in Spiritism, there is a belief in reincarnation. Now, when we get to Espiritismo, that belief in reincarnation may or may not be there depending on the type of Espiritismo that we're talking about. But traditionally, if it's rooted in Spiritism, which it should be, there is a core belief in reincarnation. Why is there a core belief in reincarnation? Well, part of it has to do with the fact that we are responsible with giving light to spirits, and that we can only give so much light within a given lifetime. So in a nutshell, the answer, although it should be sweepingly, yes, we should honor and venerate all of our ancestors, the real answer is no, you don't have to honor all of your ancestors, because you literally don't have time to do that. You literally do not have the lifespan bandwidth to be able to give yourself light, all of your ancestors light, and all of the spirits here on earth that you're supposed to give light to through charity and caridad, and all the spirits in purgatory that you have to help rescue from. It's a lot. And if you're going to sign up for this, there needs to be boundaries in place. And the way in which those boundaries get made is through your spiritual court and through working with your primary guide to figure out and understand what your destiny is. Why is that important? Why is understanding what your destiny is, or having some insight on what your path is within Espiritismo and within this lifetime, having that insight will determine which spirits you need to work with and which spirits you can gracefully and respectfully say, not this go around, honey, maybe next time, right? And there's a reason for that. There's a reason why certain ancestors step forward in your lifetime and stay with you your whole lifetime. There are reasons why ancestors step forward during very specific times in your life to help you get through specific things and then steps back. There are reasons why some ancestors don't step forward at all and you never hear from them. There are reasons why some ancestors are in a certain state of evolution and progress that they are not able to communicate with you for a gazillion reasons, right? So I think it's really important that when we have this conversation, we explore all the nuances and all the possibilities as to why or why not we should be venerating our ancestors, okay? So when I come on and I say to you, oh, you know, if you have a dick of a relative who passes away, don't expect them to not be a dick in the afterlife. What I'm essentially saying is that there are going to be factors involved in that person's life and in that person's death and with that person's spirits that person then has to answer to and account for once they cross over. And whatever that looks like for them, you're not going to be privy to right away. And so for safety reasons and for cautionary reasons, we leave them alone. We do their prayers, we do their novenas upon death, and then we leave them alone so that they have the time they need to process, to learn, and to figure out what their next steps are before we engage in ancestor veneration. And even then, there is still a choice to engage them. There is still a choice, right? Now, I'm also getting a lot of people in this conversation talking about how, you know, you should venerate or you should include those ancestors who were, you know, gangsters and murderers and rapists and this and that, because those are the warriors of your ancestral line, and those are the mother effers that are gonna protect you, and those are the ones you're gonna want to call on when you need that type of energy. You go ahead and do that. You go ahead and do that. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation that I can get into. But I wanted to really put this out here because at the end of the day, the choice is always yours. At the end of the day, what your life path is will determine which spirits will be in your life and which spirits you have to help by the very nature of your journey and their journey and that current that you share, okay? Because let's not forget, too, we're talking about spiritual fluids. We're talking about current.